Welcome to icy edition. So icy, so icy. An icy edition of Wandering Talks. Instead of leaves crunching, you get to hear snow and maybe watch me occasionally slip and struggle. It's gonna be fun, right? uh, I find that I often talk about weather and the seasons on here because when I'm on a walk, I'm often, nearly always, engaging with whatever the weather and the season is at that time. After actively having this run for a full year now, I can say I've hit all seasons, and every single one of them brings something vastly different to my walk, but also to my wandering thoughts. And they also, shape my world and what I'm up to. So this past weekend we had what the States was calling a catastrophic ice storm. A catastrophic ice storm, right? It definitely is catastrophic because it covered so much of the United States during its run, but some parts got hit harder than others. And here in North Carolina, we don't really get snow that often, but we sure do get a lot of ice. And I think that it's extremely valid, the response that we typically give when we have bad weather. We're just not accustomed to it. Our infrastructure is not designed for snow and ice to be around. So of course we're gonna panic and freak out, and we'd rather have that level of panic and freaking out sometimes, because you never know when a crisis will occur. And it's better to be prepared for a crisis and not need to do anything than to not be prepared for a crisis and then have to deal with it. And this is going to be a great transition into both a personal feeling and also maybe a chance to talk about some larger issue stuff. So the crisis that I had to deal with and navigate during this storm was burst pipes. Oh my gosh, y'all. It was honestly scary. And this incident is actually the result of consistent negligence for almost a whole year. And that negligence is kind of really difficult to deal with. And how I'll basically try and talk about this is, let's say I have a system, right? I have acknowledged that the system is faulty. Somebody else who is an expert at analyzing and observing systems has also recognized, hey, this is a faulty system. The best case scenario should be to replace the system and start fresh, right? So, heard it from myself, heard it from experts, that there's a faulty system. Now, what you can do, and what people often tend to do, is instead of doing the hard work up front and replacing the system, is instead trying to amend with temporary fixes and solutions. And I think that sometimes certain things can absolutely be done by that, and you don't need to worry about an additional replacing the whole system. Sometimes it is just a temporary fix. Sometimes all you really need to do is just throw some covering and duct tape one thing together, and that's it. That can work. That might actually work for a period of time too. However, over time, if you continue to see the same issue occurring in the system, it's not a matter of are our temporary fixes working. It now becomes the bigger question of the system needs to be replaced because it is beginning to break down. When the system starts to break down, and you put more stress and strain on the system than it's able to hold, then there may come a point when it does inevitably crack or break or fail. And what you don't want to do is to have to deal with a failed system, especially during a time of crisis, especially during a time where the system is absolutely needed to be, it's absolutely needed for survival in some capacity. But through neglect, through wanting to do temporary fixes, you can feel like I've solved the problem, especially if the system is not directly related to you. In this case, again, I'm talking about my water system in my house, and the landlord who owns it obviously does not have to deal with what I have to deal with every day, which is not having warm water, which is not having adequate water pressure. And sure, during the summertime, like, that's not too big of an issue. I do wish that I could be able to, take a warm, hot bath like I like to and enjoy the benefits of having a system that's set up and designed for like a level of comfort living. And again, I understand this is from a lens of like Western luxury, so I can't acknowledge that, like, yes, there's people around the world that don't have this, but I'm also paying X amount of dollars in order to have these amenities. And if instead of having the amenities done, I'm having to navigate like shoddy patchwork to make things happen, is it really worth the value that I'm putting in? Am I really getting my money's worth? And when again, thinking about the system, after having temporary fixes put in place over time, instead of addressing the real issue, what inevitably happened was this weekend, and I wasn't even in my place. Like, I had been having my best friend stay with me, and I went to go stay somewhere else, and he texted me and was like, yeah, water's leaking from a wall. And I'm first thinking like, oh, I know the plumbers were just here the other day installing some new stuff in the sink. I wonder if that's like, has the sink upstairs overflown? No, it's not that. I have to come back from being elsewhere, and not only do I have to come back, but I have to come back and troubleshoot with a system that I have zero familiarity with. I am not a plumber by trade. I am not an expert at navigating this system, but all of a sudden now I have to figure out how to address a problem when pipes are burst and water's leaking into my house. It's leaking into the walls. There's steam and there's vapor in the air. Everything in my shed is flooded. It's just like, okay, I have now had to experience what happens when the system fails. And when the system fails you, it really affects you. And it affects you in ways that you don't think, because now not only do I have to maybe get some things in my shed replaced, I have to contend with like an anxiety of, oh, what happens if the weather causes this to happen again? I had to turn off hot water. I had to vacate the premises. And because my best friend is also disabled, it's always a challenge of like, okay, where can we get you to? Oh, you have to stay here. Well, now I have to figure out how we can ensure that you have working water, because what was supposed to get fixed a long time ago has now not been fixed. And because of all these like temporary solutions, as opposed to doing what was recommended, we now have to deal with a major crisis. Now let's talk about this metaphor from another point of view. Our entire world, the way that we rationalize and create it, is run off of systems. Systems as active processes, not so much as static things, but flexible in and out, adaptable processes. Even nature itself is a system. The seasons are part of a larger system that we may not fully understand, but it is very much real and true regardless of our understanding and knowledge of it. So when I think about like having a faulty system. Let's just take, I don't know, for example, government. When we have recognized that our government system is faulty, us trying to do temporary fixes on it does not solve the core issue. If the core issue in my water situation was, hey, it's been recommended that you replace the water heater. If you ignore that advice, then no matter what you do, it's still always going to be a problem. If somebody recommends and says, hey, the government needs this, or hey, this school needs this, or hey, this class needs this in order for it to function, I know it's going to take some work, I know it's going to be uncomfortable, but you're going to need to replace something. I just think that some things need to be replaced. Some things you can try and fix, and other things, the best way you can fix them is by replacing them. I think that, like, yes, there is merit in wanting to not have to, like, uproot everything every single time that a thing occurs. But if it's already old and it's already been proven that problems are going to persist no matter what you do for it, and there's a continuous, like, timeline of incidents that are continuing to expand and get progressively more catastrophic, then you gotta do something. And this also comes at a time when there's a lot of political and social turmoil happening in the Midwest of the United States. What we're witnessing is bureaucratic systems that have been faulty for a long period of time are now broken to the point that, like, catastrophic incidents are occurring. And catastrophic incidents have always been occurring. When an American loses their life at the hands of a state agent, it's never a good thing, period. Never a good thing. Been happening for years for people like me. Now we're beginning to witness it's happening to just an everyday American. And now that definitely is like an uproar and an outrage. But it goes back to show that, like, we have been raising the alarm about this system for a long time already. And instead of people wanting to replace the system as has been recommended, instead, slide. Woo! That's fun. Instead of doing what was recommended, which is, like, hey, we're telling you that the system's faulty and it's flawed and it's only a matter of time before it begins to affect you. Instead, we've been like, oh, it's fine. Let's just do this little temporary thing. Oh, like when it came to police reform, instead of defunding the police, what did we do? We went and got body cams. Body cams were supposed to be this revolutionary thing that now we can surveil and watch what's happening so we can enact justice better. All body cams have done now is to show more violence from a first-person point of view. Not once has a body cam been used really in the evidence and, like, convicting a wrongful shooting. We make all these claims about how we want these things done. We get it into our systems, or we get it into our heads that, like, we just need to do this little thing and it'll make all this better. But truth is like, no. At some point, you just gotta scrap the whole thing and start fresh. And there is a power in being able to start over. And I know that it is very scary also to start over, whether that's in your personal life, your romantic life, your professional life. Like, the concept of you having to acknowledge and be aware that whatever you were doing prior to was not successful, quote unquote, is hard. It's scary because a lot of our culture is all about success and failure. There's only a binary process when it comes to thinking about success and failure. It's like you either succeed or you failed. And if you didn't succeed, well, you failed. And that's just not true. So I think that, like, when you have that kind of limited mindset, which is, again, a result of the conditioning of our culture, it can be really hard to have to admit, like, I failed this, and in that failing, I have to do another thing. But I often have to, like, acknowledge that, like, if you put forth effort and you put forth worth and put forth time and energy and labor, that's not a failure. The success is in the fact that you put forth a labor or an effort or purpose or passion into something. Sure, the results may not have reached what you may have wanted them to be, but that's not our duty and responsibility. That's our expectation. Reality is going to present us with something completely different than our expectations every single time. So even though we might have an expectation of this is how it's supposed to work out and this is how it's supposed to be, I love seeing these deer tracks too in the snow. I think it's really cute because I could also like do some tracking, figure out where so-and-so went, what time, how many there were. It's cool. Shout out to Red Dead Redemption 2. But what was I saying? The success is in the fact that we put forth effort into something that we chose for ourselves. That right there is a celebration that we need to acknowledge more and more and more. And I believe that if we can shift our mindset to thinking that a success is putting forth effort instead of reaching a perceived end goal, then we'll be more confident in recognizing like, I can start fresh. I can start over. I can do something different. Because we need that more and more. We need to be comfortable with breaking away from old patterns, old habits, faulty systems and routines that are not fulfilling us. If we have a system in place, best believe I want it to do what it's supposed to do. If it's supposed to benefit my life, then I want it to benefit my life. There's no point in me keeping up with a system that is only causing me more frustration, strife, maybe hazard and possible injury to my place in my person. That's not good. So if I'm going to have a system in place, like what steps can I take to ensure that it is a functional system, that it is beneficial in the long run? And beneficial doesn't always have to mean that it makes life easy or simple or chill or whatever, but beneficial can simply be the difference between having no water and having water. And during a seasonal ice storm that has been described as catastrophic, having to cut off your water is not a good thing. Having to deal with a leaking pipe is not a good thing. Having to contend and have a crisis management during an already bigger crisis is not ideal. So it's just interesting to think about it all. And one other thing I think about too is, when it comes to my water situation, is that February 10th, 2025 is when I put my first maintenance request in about the water. And it was told to me by the main company that the recommended fix was to replace everything. Instead of doing that, the landowner decided, I'm just gonna, bring my plumber in and have the thing looked at. What I've come to realize is that after series of asking for things on my own, I have to employ somebody who's higher up than me. Somebody whose job is my well-being. So I've reached out to my leasing agent and the company head to basically be like, hey, I think that whatever is going on here, y'all need to assist me in this. Y'all need to advocate for me. And I'm coming to realize that is important, is to know that my individual voice may not be heard and it may not be respected. And that sucks, but that's also reality. But you know what I can do? I can go to somebody higher up. I can go to somebody different. I can go to somebody who has the power to make something different. What the hell is that? I don't know. That's strange. But I can go to somebody who has the ability to make a difference. And I can say, hey, on my behalf, I need you to do this for me. I need you to step up and speak for me, because if not, what I'm experiencing will also come onto you. And sure, that might be difficult, but it's also a possible way of having a changed system.